Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So today we start a discussion about the book Hari Bhakti Vilasa. So Hari, of course, means Lord Narayana or Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Bhakti, we know, means devotion. And Vilas, the word Vilas means the pleasure, means pleasure. So the pleasure of serving in devotion of Lord Hari is the name of the book. So this book was ordered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be written to give all of his followers instructions on what is called Anustanam. Anustanam means what we do, how to do things, how to live your life, daily, monthly, all the different rules and regulations, all the different Shastra quotes about how we should perform different rituals of Vaishnavism. And so for Gaudiya Sampradaya, it's a very important book. It's a very thick book. And it comes in 20 chapters, which are also called, each one of them is called a Vilas. So 20 chapters, which are also called experiences of happiness, let's say, Vilas. Pleasures, 20 pleasures. Okay, so our first pleasure. Now, so Lord Chaitanya ordered Sanatana Goswami to write this book. And Sanatana Goswami got another Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who was from South India, from Sri Rangam. He got him to do all the research for the book and to come up with all the quotes from Pancharatra and all the Puranas and different scriptures to put in the book. So the initial book was written by Sanatana Goswami. By Gopal Bhatta Goswami. It was all the quotes from the different scriptures. And then Sanatana Goswami wrote his commentary on it. And the commentary is called the Dig Darshani Tika. A Tika is a type of commentary. There are different types of commentaries. Bhasya, Tika, and Tippani are the three main ones. A Bhasya is a very, very long commentary and a very elaborate commentary. A Tika is a little bit less than that, medium size. And a Tippani is a small one. A Tippani would be like if somebody had already written a commentary, you wrote your own little commentary to explain a few things that were not said by the previous Acharya who wrote the commentary, the Tippani or the Tika or the Bhasya. So we have what's called a Tika on this, a medium-sized commentary. And that medium-sized commentary is also in Sanskrit by Sanatana Goswami to give us exactly the right understanding. And it is called Dig Darshani. Dig or Dik means direction. Darshani means to see. So Dig Darshani Tika means my commentary is looking from a different direction, or looking from another direction. Looking from a different point of view is what the point, from a different point of view, or from another point of view, or another point of view by Sanatana Goswami. Because sometimes Hari Bhakti Vilasa is criticized by some people. They say, oh, it's full of all sorts of smart information. Although it's got a lot of stuff that we like, there's a few things in there which we feel are too elaborate or too much like smarta rituals. What do we mean by smarta rituals? We're actually all smartas. All Vaishnavas are also smartas. What do I mean by smarta? The word in English, smarter, right, is not meant by when we say smarta. Smarta comes from the word shmriti. There are different types of scriptures. There's shruti and shmriti. Shruti means what are heard. Shmriti means what is remembered. They come from shruyate and shmriyate, right? To listen and to hear, two verbs in Sanskrit. So shruti means the nigama or the Vedas. There's a group of shastras called the Vedas Upanishads, Samhitas, Upanishads, Aranyakas, and Brahmanas. These are Vedic scriptures written in Vedic Sanskrit, and they are apaurushaya, unauthored by anybody. They are completely unauthored, and they are eternal, and those are without fault. They are the seers of the Vedas, the different rishis of the Vedas intuited them in their meditation, but they're eternal. So different seers are known to have spoken different parts of the Vedas, but it doesn't mean that they are the authors. They're completely authorless. So that is called Shruti. The other name for that is Nigama. Then you have Agama. Agama or Smriti, that which is remembered. So Hari Bhakti Vilas is called Vaishnava Smriti. If you want to refer to it as anything, it's called Vaishnava Smriti. Some other Smritis that you might have heard are Manu Smriti, Parasara Smriti. There's many of the many lawgivers in Hinduism and Vaishnavism who have written different Smritis. So those are authored books. Some other books that fall under the category of Smriti are, of course, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Puranas, which were all compiled and written, authored by Vedavyas. Vedavyas compiled the Vedas and split the one Veda into four, right? Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva, but he didn't write the Vedas. So he was only like an editor who cut them up into pieces to make it easier for people to learn them. Whereas he did author the Puranas, the Mahabharata, and Valmiki authored the Ramayana, like that. They are actually authored by him. So the Smritis are authored. So most of this Smriti Hari Bhakti Vilas is most of the quotes from different shastras come from Smritis. They come from authored books of shastra, and they have a commentary also by Sanatana Goswami. So Gopal Bhatta collected all the quotations, and Sanatana Goswami wrote the commentaries. So without further ado, we're going to start our discussion of Hari Bhakti Vilas. It starts with the first Vilas. Now each Vilas has a different theme. Each Vilas has a different theme. What we're doing is we have an English version that we're going to read from. And if any points of interest come up, we have also got the Sanskrit with the commentary published by Haridas Shastri, but we also have the one published by Bhakti Siddhanta, and we have some other copies also. But this should be sufficient, the one printed by Haridas Shastri, which has a translation in Hindi, but also has the Sanskrit Tika, Digdarshini Tika, in Devanagari, like that. The Gaudiya Math version is fully in Bengali characters. All the Sanskrit and all the translation is in Bengali characters. Okay, so starting with the first chapter, the first Vilas. We have, in the beginning of most books, there is what's called a Mangala Charanam. Mangala means auspicious, and Charanam means feet. So it's a prayer which is offered at the feet of the Lord, or at the feet of the author, or at the feet of the commentator, whoever we are praying to get the mercy to understand, to have the realization of this text. So in this case, the person who inspired this text is Sri Chaitanya Dev, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the founder of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. So the Mangala Charanam, I'll just read the Mangala Charanam. Chaitanya Devam Bhagavantam Ashraye, Sri Vaishnavanam Pramudain Jasalikan, Avasyakam Karma Vicharya Sadhubihi, Sarda Samahritya Samasta Shastrataha. Okay, that's the Mangala Charanam. It says Ata Mangala Charanam. Ata means now, thus, the Mangala Charanam, the auspicious invocation. And this is what it means. Having taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, I begin writing this book for the pleasure of the devotees. After having carefully considered the regulative principles of devotional service, I churned the great ocean of revealed scriptures and compiled this literature to explain the duties of a practicing devotee. So that's the meaning of the verse. Invoking auspiciousness, Shri refers to the Supreme Lord, who is full of 6 opulences. Shri also refers to Radha. Hari refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Bhakti Vilas refers to the love and devotion that the living entities offer to Sri Krishna, Sri Narayana, Sri Nrsimha, or Sri Ramachandra. This is the ultimate goal of life. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the ultimate goal of life has been described as rendering loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. This book, Sri Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas, contains glorification of devotional service, as well as elaborate descriptions of various limbs of sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. Sri Narayana is the Supreme Lord of all the demigods, or devatas, headed by Brahma, and Krishna is the Lord of even Narayana. For this reason, Lord Krishna is undoubtedly the supreme worshipable Lord. Still, demigods, such as Brahma and Shiva, are never to be disregarded by Vaishnavas. Those literatures that do not reveal the glories of devotional service to Lord Hari are not even fit to be seen by Vaishnavas, even if they were spoken by great personalities like Brahma. In consideration of this point, the name of this book is very appropriate. It contains 20 vilasas, or chapters. The need for taking shelter at the lotus feet of a spiritual master. So now what's going to be described by Gopal Bhatta Goswami and by Sanatana Goswami is what's called a Laikya Pratigya. In the text, it's called Laikya Pratigya. Laikya means what is written, and Pratigya means a promise of what is written. Okay, so we can translate that as a table of contents. So in the beginning, before actually starting to speak about the first, he's just said here the first issue is going to be how to the need for taking shelter at the lotus feet of a spiritual master, right? A guru, teacher. So before we get into that, he's going to just summarize all the 20 vilasas, and he's just going to say, this is the table of contents of this book. This is what I'm going to cover. These are the subjects. Okay? So, starting again, the first subject is the need for taking shelter at the lotus feet of a spiritual master, the characteristics of a bona fide spiritual master, the symptoms of a qualified disciple.
Could I just say something really quickly? Sure. The other day you were you made some really good points about Lord Chaitanya personally instructing Sanatana Goswami on what to write about, and we read from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I just wanted to make sure that made the recording, because I feel like that was just such an important point as to the importance of Hari Bhakti Vilas. That really inspired me when you read from that the other day.
Okay, some people say that we don't need to read Hari Bhakti Vilas, or Hari Bhakti Vilas is not important, like that. But if we actually look at Chaitanya Charitamrita, I would have to open that up now. Maybe if you want, I'll open it up and we can read from it. It'll just clarify that point. So now let's have a look. Let's have a look at Chaitanya Charitamrita to just see how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami to start writing or to compile the Hari Bhakti Vilas. So we're reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 24, verse 334. And the translation is, folding his hands, Sanatana Goswami said to the Lord, to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "My Lord, you ordered me to write a directory about the activities of Vaishnavas." So then he says, I am a most low-born person. I have no knowledge of good behavior. How is it possible for me to write authorized directions about Vaishnava activities? Sanatana Goswami then requested the Lord, please personally tell me how I can write this difficult book about Vaishnava behavior. Please manifest yourself in my heart. If you would please manifest yourself within my heart and personally direct me in writing this book, then although I'm low-born, I may hope to be able to write it. You can do this because you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead yourself, and whatever you direct is perfect. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, whatever you want to do, you will be able to do correctly by Lord Krishna's favor. He will manifest the real purport. So this is a blessing by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on Sanatana Goswami, that whatever he wants to do, as he wants to write the book, Lord Krishna will bless him and give him his favor, and the real purport of the directions that he's asking to be written about Vaishnava behavior will come out in the writings of Sanatana Goswami. So that's the blessing from Lord Chaitanya about the book. Here in the next sloka we see the word digdarshana, right, being mentioned, and Prabhupada translates it as an indication. But as before I said, it means looking from another point of view. Then he says, because you asked me for a synopsis, right? Please hear these few indications. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is now narrating to Sanatana Goswami what should go in the book. Because you asked me for a synopsis, please hear these few indications. In the beginning, describe how one must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. So that's the first subject. And we can see that it says here, Adao means the beginning. Guru Ashrayana. Ashraya means to take shelter of Guru, of a teacher. The next thing says, Guru Lakshana, Shishya Lakshana, Dohara Parikshana, Sevya, Bhagavan, Sarva Mantra Vicharana. Okay? So it means your book should describe the characteristics of a bona fide guru, that is Guru Lakshana, and a bona fide disciple, that is Shishya Lakshana. Then before accepting a spiritual master, one can be assured of the spiritual master's position. Similarly, the spiritual master can also be assured of the disciple's position. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, should be described as the worshipable object. And you should describe the Bija mantra for the worship of Krishna, as well as that for Rama and other expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now in the actual Bengali here, it says Sarva Mantra Vicharana. So it says you should describe all these mantras. It doesn't necessarily exactly say Bija mantra here. The word Bija means seed. So the Bija mantra for Krishna, of course, is Kleem Bij. The Bija mantra for Rama is Ram Bij, right? So he's just saying that the Bija mantra for Narasimha is Shrom Bij. So there are these different seed mantras which are explained, but also what was also explained is different types of mantras and consideration for them. So continuing on with verse 331, Mantra Adhikari, Mantra Siddhyadi Shodhanam, Diksha, Prataha Shmitya Kritya, Socha Achamana. The translation is, you should discuss the qualifications necessary for receiving a mantra, the perfection of the mantra, how to get mantra siddhi, the purification of the mantra, initiation or diksha, morning duties, what we should remember in the morning and chant in the morning, remembrance of the Supreme Lord, cleanliness and washing the mouth with saying the ritual of sipping water, achamana, and other parts of the body, touching different parts of the body, right, which is part of the achamana. So then if we continue on to 332, Danta Davana, which means cleaning the teeth, Shnana, taking a bath, Sandhyadi Vandanam, means offering prayers at the different times of the day, morning, noon, and evening, right? Guru Seva, serving the teacher. Urdhva Pundra Chakradi Dharanam, putting on of tilak, of vertical Urdhva Pundra Vaishnava tilak, markings on the body, and also marking the body with the symbols of Vishnu, like the chakra, etc. You should describe how in the morning one should regularly brush his teeth, take his bath, offer prayers to the Lord, and offer obeisances to the spiritual master. One should also describe how one should render service to the spiritual master and paint one's body with 12 places, in 12 places with Urdhva Pundra Tilaka, made of Gopi Chandana, of course, as well as how one should stamp one's body with the holy names of the Lord or the symbols of the Lord, such as the disc and club. Then we have Gopi Chandana Malya Dhriti, Tulasi Aharanam, right? Vastra Pita Griha Samskara, Krishna Prabodhana. So Gopi Chandana is mentioned here. Malya, wearing a mala, right? Malya Dhriti, right? Which is on the neck or chest. Tulasi Aharana means collecting tulsi leaves, which is part of the first part, is called Upadana. The first part, of course, is getting ready and taking bath in the morning. That is called Abhigamanam. The second part is called Upadana, collecting things that you need to worship the Lord. Vastra, Pita, Griha. Vastra means your cloth. Pita means the place where the puja is going on. And Griha means the house. Samskara means purifying those things. And then, after doing all of that, Krishna Prabodhanam, waking up Krishna. So, after this, you should describe how one should decorate his body with Gopi Chandana, which we already discussed, tilak and stamping with the symbols of Vishnu. Wear neck beads, collect tulsi leaves from the tulsi tree, cleanse his cloth and the altar, clean his own house or apartment, and go to the temple and ring the bell just to draw the attention of Lord Krishna. So now we have, it says, Pancha Shodasha Panchashat, Upachari. Upachara, as we know, means service, Archana. Archana means worship. So the worship, using the services, either 5, 16, or 50 services, right? Panchakala puja means offering worship 5 times in a day, right? Arati, or Harati in South India, Arati means the offering of lamps. Krishna Bhojana Shaina. Krishnera Bhojana means offering Krishna Naivedyam or foodstuffs. And Shayana means putting him to sleep. So the translation is also describe deity worship wherein one should offer food to Lord Krishna at least 5 times a day and in due time place him on a bed. You should also describe the process of offering arati and the worship of the Lord according to the list of 5, 16, or 50 ingredients. So this is all being stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu according to Krishnadas Kaviraj, the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling Sanatana Goswami, include all these things, all these subjects in the book. Sri Murti Lakshanam, which means, remember we had Guru Lakshanam and Shishya Lakshanam. Guru Lakshanam means the qualifications or the qualifications or the qualities of the teacher. Shishya Lakshanam means the qualifications or qualities of the disciple. Sri Murti Lakshanam means the qualities of the deity, the deity. So Murti Lakshanam, Ara, Shalagrama Lakshanam. Shalagrama is a different type of murti, a self-manifest murti coming from the Gandaki River in Nepal, a self-manifest murti of Lord Vishnu. So we should also know the qualities and the qualities of Shalagrama. Krishna Kshetra Yatra. Krishna Kshetra Yatra means traveling to the holy places, Krishna Kshetras, and Krishna Murti Darshana, how to take darshan of the different deities in those holy places. So the characteristics of the deity should be discussed, as well as the characteristics of Shalagram Shila. Shila means a stone. Shalagram is the place from which that stone comes from on the Gandaki River in Nepal. So you should also discuss visiting the deities in the temple and touring holy places like Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka. Nama Mahima, Nama Parada Dure Varjana, Vaishnava Lakshana, Seva Parada Kandana. Okay, so this means you should glorify the holy name and explain that one must carefully give up the offenses when chanting the holy name. You should also describe the symptoms of a Vaishnava, right? His qualities, his qualifications, right? And explain that one must give up and nullify all kinds of seva aparada, which means offenses in the worship of the deity, offenses in deity worship. Shanka Jala Ganda Pushpa Dupadi Lakshanam. So Shanka means a conch, Jala means water, Ganda means sandal paste, Pushpa means flowers, Dupa means incense, Adi means etc. All these different things that you use in puja of the Lord and worship of the Lord, you should explain about them, their characteristics. Japa, Stuti, Parikrama, Dandavat, Vandana. So you should explain about how to chant japa. You explain about how to chant stotras, how to chant different prayers, stuti. You should also explain about how to do parikrama, how to circumambulate the deity, how to offer dandavat. Danda means a stick. Dandavat means like a stick. How to pay your obeisances to God like a stick, falling flat on the ground. And vandana, how to offer different prayers. So the translation is, the items of worship such as water, conch shell, flowers, incense, and lamp should be described. You should also mention chanting softly. So japa is a type of chanting that should be done softly. Japa is sometimes called upamamsu, which means you're murmuring. You're just chanting enough that you can hear, but not the person sitting right next to you can hear. So it's not very loud chanting. So there's different types of chanting that we described in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. You can also chant within the mind, manasika japa. You can also chant out loud, very loud. That's also a type of japa, vachika. It's called vachika. Everybody can hear you, right? So there's different types. But here, Prabhupada's translating it as mentioned about soft chanting. Offering prayers, circumambulating, and offering obeisances. All these should be described. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants all these described with certain verse. Puruscharana Vidi, Krishna Prasada Bhojana, Anivedita Tyaga, Vaishnava Nindadi Varjana. One should, other items you should describe are the method of performing Puruscharana. Puruscharana, the other word for Puruscharana is Puruscharya. They both mean the same thing. They mean perfecting the mantra which is given to you by the Guru. A method of how many times to chant it and how to chant it and how to do different things so that you'll get the siddhi, the mantra siddhi, or the perfection of the mantra. Taking Krishna's prasada. After offering food to Krishna, the remnants of that food is distributed to Vaishnavas, and the Vaishnavas honor that food by eating it. And there's a specific way to eat prasadam, and so there are different rules and regulations about that. So please describe that. Giving up unoffered food. We should not eat the food which is not offered to Lord Krishna, which is not prasadam. And not blaspheming the Lord's devotees, which is very important. That's called Vaishnava Ninda. Ninda actually, the word means criticizing, right? So it means not criticizing, not giving up criticizing other Vaishnavas. It's an important point. Okay, so then moving on to verse 339. Sadhu Lakshana. Remember, this word Lakshana means the qualities or qualifications of a sadhu. Sadhu is a holy person. Sadhu Sangha. Sangha means associating with the sadhus. Sadhu Sevana. Offering your worship to the sadhus or offering assistance to the sadhus and serving them in some way. Asat Sangha Tyaga. Tyaga means to give up. Asat means is the opposite of sadhu. The word sadhu, a holy person, comes from the word tat. Sat. Sat. Sat means eternal. So a person who's interested in eternal things is a sadhu. A person who's not interested in eternal things, in other words, is interested only in temporary things, material things in this world, is a asadhu. He's not a sadhu. So here it says asat sangha tyaga, giving up the sangha, the association of those persons who are not sadhus, who are the opposite of holy people, who are materialistic people who are interested only in material, temporary things. They should be given up. Their association should be given up. And then Sri Bhagavata Shravana means listening to the Bhagavatam and other holy scriptures. So it says here, you should describe the symptoms of a devotee, how to associate with devotees, how to satisfy a devotee by rendering service, and how to give up the association of non-devotees. You should also explain the value of regularly hearing the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Dina Kritya, Paksha Kritya, Ekadasyadi Vivarna, Masya Kritya, Janmastam Yadi Vidi Vicharna, right? So Dina Kritya, so the word Kritya comes 3 times here in this verse. Kritya means activities, what we do. Kritya comes from the verb kri, to do. So Kritya means activities. Dina Kritya means the activities of the day. Paksha Kritya means the activities of the fortnight. Masa Kritya means the activities of the particular month. Ekadasi means the particular, Ekadasi Adi. There are different holy days, like Ekadasi, the 11th day of the waning and the waxing moons, and that should be described, and also other holy days. Then also the days which are the appearance days of different avatars of the Lord, like Janmastami, Ramanavami, Narasimha Chaturdasi, these different days, Vamana Dwadasi, when the Lord's incarnations appear, right? So the translation, you should describe the ritualistic duties to be performed every day. These are called Nitya Kriyas or Nitya Krityas, right? With things that we do Nitya, eternally, or every day. And you should also describe the fortnightly duties, right? Especially how to observe the fortnightly Ekadasi fast. You should also describe the duties to be observed every month. And you should especially describe the observance of the ceremonies like Janmastami, Ramanavami, and Narasimha Chaturdasi. Okay. Then Lord Chaitanya continues, Ekadasi, Janmastami, Vamana Dwadasi, Sri Ramanavami, Ara Narasimha Chaturdasi. So, Ekadasi, Janmastami, Vamana Dwadasi, the appearance day of Vamana Dev, Ramanavami, Lord Rama's appearance day, Janmastami, of course, being Krishna's appearance day, Narasimha Chaturdasi, Narasimha's appearance day. All of these should be described. Then it says, Esaba Vida Tyaga, Avida Karna, Akarna Dosha, Kaila Bhaktira Lambana. Okay. You should recommend the avoidance of mixed Ekadasi. What does it mean by mixed Ekadasi? It means Ekadasi is a lunar day. A lunar day can start and end at any time in the solar day. So there's no particular time when it starts and no particular time when it ends. We have to look at the calculations and see when it starts and ends. So sometimes we all live our lives according to solar days. We get up in the morning and we go to bed at night normally, right? However, that doesn't mean that the Ekadasi Tithi starts in the morning and ends at night. No, it may start in the middle of the night and end early in the morning. So it may start or end at any time. So when you have a solar day, right, when the Ekadasi Tithi, the lunar day of Ekadasi, starts halfway through the solar day, then you have what's called a mixed Ekadasi. That's right. The Ekadasi is on maybe half on one day and half on another day. So then you have to explain, you should avoid observing Ekadasi or all the things like fasting or whatever you do on Ekadasi. you should avoid doing those things on the day when the Ekadasi is mixed with the solar day. But you should try to do it when it comes directly and on a particular solar day. Or you have to, in some cases, in some calendars in India, they'll show Ekadasi on 2 days because it's mixed with 2 solar days. So normally Vaishnavas, what we do, the Smartas take the first one, the Vaishnavas usually take the second one and perform the fasting or whatever holy actions we're doing during Ekadasi on the second one. So the avoidance of mixed Ekadasi and the performance of pure Ekadasi. So there's many rules and regulations which we'll find out about in Hari Bhakti Vilasa later on. You should also describe the fault of not observing Ekadasi. When you forget about Ekadasi and you didn't look at the calendar and you missed it. One should be very careful as far as these items are concerned. If one is not careful, one will be negligent in executing devotional service. So then in the next it says sarvatra pramana. Pramana means proof. So sarvatra means the proof coming from everywhere. Purana vachana means speaking or chanting or reciting the Puranas. Trimurti Vishnu Mandira Karna Lakshanam, making of a temple of Vishnu, how to make a temple of Vishnu and the qualities and qualifications that have to be in a temple, right? So whatever you say about Vaishnava behavior, the establishment of Vaishnava temples and deities, and everything else should be supported by evidence from the Puranas. So this is why Purana Vachana is mentioned. The evidence should come from the Puranas, and sometimes it comes from Pancharatras and other literature too. But anyway, it has to come from recognized scriptures, all the evidence about these things. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying to him, whatever you write in here, bring evidence from the scriptures about these things. You should give general and specific descriptions of the behavior and activities of a Vaishnava, right? You should outline things that are to be done and things which are not to be done. Because in the process of devotional service, in the process of religion, Vaishnava religion, we anukulyasya sankalpa and pratikulyasya vajana. We do things which are sanctioned by the Lord in the scriptures, according to his orders, and we reject things which are not there in the scriptures or which are against his orders, right? All this should be described as regulations and etiquette. So there are two things. There are regulations, there are rules, and then there's also etiquette sometimes. There are some rules, but we also have to remember that we have to avoid criticizing Vaishnavas, right? So sometimes a Vaishnava might not follow a rule or forget about a rule, or just like it was said, somebody forgets Ekadasi. So there's also an etiquette to deal with other people and to deal with the deity and to deal with the spiritual master or to deal with the disciple in the case of neglection of the rules and regulations. So I have thus given, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying to Sanatana Goswami, I have thus given a synopsis, I've just given in brief, of the Vaishnava regulative principles. So I've given you the subject matters. Now you have to go and write that elaborately. So I have given just in brief, just to give you a little direction. When you write on this subject, Krishna will help you by spiritually awakening you. So the blessing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami is that I've given you an outline to write this book. Now you write it, and Krishna within your heart is going to inspire you and give you all the knowledge to be able to write it perfectly. Then he says, thus I have narrated Lord Chaitanya's mercy or grace upon Sanatana Goswami. When one hears these topics, one's heart will be cleansed from all contamination. Now we're going to go back to our discussion of the Lekya Pratigya, which is the first part of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, or the table of contents. So again, he starts the table of contents, the need for taking shelter of the lotus feet of a spiritual master, the characteristics of a bona fide spiritual master, the symptoms of a qualified disciple, the spiritual masters and disciples' tests for one another, the process of worshiping the spiritual master, the prayer of a disciple, the glories of the Supreme Lord. The glories of Vaishnava mantras are described in the first Vilasa. So the first Vilasa is the first chapter. It's the first pleasure. It's the first topic of pleasure that we read in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. And it describes those things. So now we're going to read about more. In order to teach the proper code of conduct and to complete this book without any impediment, I first offer my obeisances at the lotus feet of my worshipable Lord, Sri Sri Radha Raman, and then at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Dev. So this is very clear evidence in the beginning of Hari Bhakti Vilas that the person writing this is Gopal Bhatta Goswami and not Sanatana Goswami. So some people think Hari Bhakti Vilas was written by Sanatana Goswami. But as we discussed a little bit before, Sanatana Goswami was given the benediction and given the order by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to write Hari Bhakti Vilas. He then got Gopal Bhatta Goswami to do the research and to give all of the pramanas, all of the scriptural proofs from the Smriti, which we discussed before, right? From the different shastras, on the different subject matters that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu blessed him to write about. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami compiled all those things, and that is the Hari Bhakti Vilas. So here, when Gopal Bhatta Goswami starts, he says, he offers his obeisances to Radha Raman, which is his worshipable deity. And you will read, if you read the commentary of Sanatana Goswami offers his obeisances to his deity, Madan Mohan. They also both, of course, offer their obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as well. Although I am the most insignificant person, this is Gopal Bhatta Goswami writing again, by taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is full of 6 opulences and who is the reservoir of unlimited transcendental qualities, nothing remains unfulfilled. My ability lies in his mercy and his potency. I have taken up this difficult task simply by his inspiration. I have no power to do anything independently. As long as I remain surrendered at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, nothing will be difficult to accomplish. The limbs of devotional service are described throughout the Vedas, the Puranas, and the Pancharatras. I have carefully collected these descriptions and presented them in this book. Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, a disciple of Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati. Prabodhananda Saraswati was his guru and also his uncle, and also from Sri Rangam, who was a dear associate of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Dev, has compiled the most glorious limbs of devotional service and divided them into Hari Bhakti Vilas, into 20 Vilasas, 20 chapters. That is why this book is named Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas. I compiled this literature to please Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatana Goswamis, who were the 2 chairpersons of the Vishva Vaishnava Raja Sabha, as well as my companion, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. So this is the text 2 of Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is a prayer by Gopal Bhatta Goswami, mentioning his name as the author, right? And praying to the feet of Raghunath Das and Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, as well as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhaktir Vilasam Chin Nute Prabodha Nandasya Shishyo Bhagavat Priyasya Gopala Bhato Raghunatha Dasam Santoshayan Rupa Sanatana Cha. That's verse 2 of Hari Bhakti Vilas. So continuing on with verse 3. This book, Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas, was born from Sri Gopal Bhatta's ecstatic love for the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the Lord of Mathura. May the bee-like devotees of Govinda the Lord of Mathura Mandala, which is the abode of devotional service, cultivate the understanding presented here and preach it to others. So this is also part of the Mangala Charanam, the beginning of the book. And the illusion given here in the poetry is that the devotees are like bees and the Lord's lotus feet are like lotus nectar-bearing flowers. So the Lord's feet, Lord Krishna's feet, are like lotuses, and the devotees are like bees that always want the nectar of Lord Krishna's feet, the lotuses of Lord Krishna's feet. And so the benediction also given here in the Mangala Charanam, the prayer here is that all the devotees should be able to understand these directions about the how devotees should act, devotional service, and they should be able to also cultivate those actions themselves. So they should be able to follow these principles, and they should also preach these things to others, which is what we're doing now. So then in verse 4, he says, all glories to the Vaishnavas who cultivate devotional service at the lotus feet of Sri Govinda, who eternally resides in Mathura Mandala. May Kashishwara Pandit, Krishnadas Kaviraj, Lokanath Goswami live happily in Vrindavan while cultivating devotional service. This literature was compiled during their stay in Vrindavan. So here, Gopal Bhatta Goswami is mentioning some of the other personalities. Lokanath Goswami was considered like a seventh Goswami out of the six. Krishnadas Kaviraj, of course, was there, present at the same time. Kashishwar Pandit, these are all people who were, if not direct associates of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at least people, who were there directly after him. So then it says, so that's the end of the Mangala Charanam. So the Mangala Charanam is 4 verses long. And then comes what I said before, Tatra Lekya Pratigya, the contents of this book, the table of contents. Again, the word Lekya means what is written, and Pratigya means promise, a promise of what is written here, right? So the contents of the book or table of contents. So here we go. Adau Sakaranam Lekya Sri Guru Ashrayanam Tata Guru Shishya Pariks Sadhir Bhagavan Manavo Syaksha Mantradikari Siddhyadi Shodanam Mantra Samskriya. Okay, this is verse 5. The following is the table of contents of the entire work from the first Vilas to the 20th Vilas, which is the end. In the first Vilas, the following subjects are covered: the need for taking shelter at the lotus feet of a spiritual master, the characteristics of a bona fide spiritual master, the symptoms of a genuine disciple, the spiritual masters and the disciples' tests for one another, the process for worshipping the spiritual master, the prayer of a disciple, the glories of the Supreme Lord, the glories of Vaishnava mantras, the qualified candidate for chanting these mantras, the processes of purification, and the processes for purifying the mantras. Right? So text 6 is Diksha Nityam Brahmakale Shubhutotanam Pavitrata. In the second Vilas, the process of initiation is described. In the third Vilas, the following subjects are discussed: the proper code of conduct for the devotee, rising every day at the time of Brahma Muhurta, 1 hour and 36 minutes before sunrise, to chant the glories of Krishna, washing his face, cleansing his teeth, wearing fresh cloth. Continuing on, text 7, Pratasmrityadi Krishnasya Vadyadyais cha prabodhanam nirmal yotaranadhyadau Mangalarchikam tata. Mangalarchikam. Hearing and chanting about the pastimes of Krishna in the morning, waking up the deity while playing musical instruments, removing flowers from the altar, offering Mangala Arti. Text 8. Maitradi Krityam Sauchacha Manam Dantasya Davanam Snanam Tantrika Sandhyadi Deva Sadmadi Samskriya. The proper way to pass urine and stool, cleansing the body, rinsing the mouth, cleansing the teeth, which is to be performed right after getting up from bed, the morning bath, chanting mantras, and worshipping the Lord in the water. In the fourth Vilas, the following subjects are discussed: cleansing the Lord's temple, drawing auspicious signs like the swastika, erecting flags, purifying the containers and clothes of the deities. Text 9. Tulasiyadi Kritir Geha, Snanam Ushnodakadikam, Vastram Pitam, Chodvapundram, Sri Gopi Chandanadikam. Picking tulsi leaves, collecting flowers, taking midday bath at home with warm water, if there is no holy river available nearby, wearing fresh clothes, the proper sitting place, and decorating one's body with the marks of tilak made from gopi chandana. The 10th text is Chakradi Mudra Malacha Griha Sandhyarchanam Guroho Mahatmyam Charta Krishnasya Dwara Veshmantarachanam. After putting on tilak, one should decorate his body with various auspicious marks, right? Chakradi mudras, right? Wear tulsi beads, sit at home and chant the Gayatri mantra, doing Griha Sandhya Archanam, worship the spiritual master, recite prayers in praise of the spiritual master. In the 5th Vilas, the following are discussed: the worship of the doors of the temple. Then the 11th text says, Pujartasanam Argyadi Stapanam Vigya Varnam Sri Gurvadi Natir Bhuta Shuddhi Prana Vishodhanam. The proper asana for worshipping the Lord, placing pots of argya and other substances in their proper places, putting the necessary ingredients in the pots, such as padya, installing auspicious water pots, praying to the Lord for removing all obstacles, offering obeisances to the spiritual master, purifying oneself, the process, the proper breathing process. Text 12 says, Nyasa Mudra Panchakam Cha Krishna Dhyanantarachane Puja Padani Sri Murti Shaligrama Shilas Tata. The nyasas, 5 kinds of mudras, meditation on Krishna, worshipping Krishna in the mind, the proper place of worship, the deity form of the Lord, and the Shaligram Shilas. These are also described in the 5th Vilas. The next 13th verse, Dwarakod Bhava Chakrani, Sudaya Pita Pujanam, Avahanadi Tanmudra, Asanadi Samarpanam, Dwarkashilas, and purifying all the ingredients for worship. In the 6th Vilas, the following topics are covered: worshipping the Lord's abode, invoking the Lord by displaying various gestures or mudras, offering an asana and other articles to the Lord. The text 14, Shnapanam Sankhya Gantadi, Vandyam Nama Sahasrakam Purana Pato Vasanam Upavitam Vibhushanam, bathing the deity, blowing the conch shell and ringing bells, reciting the 1,000 names of the Lord and the Puranas, offering cloth to the Lord, decorating the Lord with a sacred thread and ornaments. Text 15. Ganda Sri Tulsi Kasta Chandanam Kusamani Cha Patrani Tulsi Chango Panga Varnam Pujanam, and offering the sandalwood paste and paste made from tulsi wood. The seventh Vilasa deals with offering various kinds of fragrant flowers and tulsi leaves to the Lord and worshipping the Lord's associates. Text 16. Dupo Deepas Chanaivedyam Panam Homa Balakriya Avangandushya Yasya Vaso Divya Gandharikam Punaha. In the eighth Vilasa, the following subjects are discussed: the offering of incense, a ghee lamp, food and drink to the Lord, offering the Lord's remnants to the devotees, offering water to the Lord for washing his face, offering betel nuts to the Lord, smearing a fragrant paste over the Lord, offering an umbrella and chamara. Chamara is a fan for getting flies off yourself or off a king, usually, made of a yak's tail. Performing a grand arti along with singing, dancing, and playing of musical instruments. Verse 18. Shankadi Padanam Sambhu Shanka Nirajanam Stutihi Nati Pradakshina Karma Dhyarpanam Japa Yachane Aga Shama Panam Nana Gamsi Nirmalya Dharanam. Blowing the conch shell, worshipping the Lord with the conch shell filled with water, offering prayers to the Lord, bowing down before the Lord, circumambulating the Lord, offering one's activities to the Lord, chanting mantras, making appeals to the Lord, begging the Lord for forgiveness, and wearing garlands that have been offered to the Lord. Text 19. Shankambu Tirtam Tulasi Puja Tan Mitikadicha Dhatri Snana Nishedasya Kalo Vritir Uparjanam. The contents of the ninth Vilasa are sprinkling the water from the conch shell on one's head, drinking the water that has washed the Lord's lotus feet, worshipping Tulsi Devi, the glories of decorating one's body with clay from the root of the Tulsi plant, and wearing Tulsi beads. The glories of Amalaki, which is a Indian gooseberry, small round green fruit. The glories of Amalaki, bathing at the end of a festival, which is called Avabrita Shnana, or after touching an untouchable person during a festival, studying the scriptures and earning one's livelihood by proper means. Verse 20 and 21. Madhyane Vaishvadevadi Shradham Chanarpyam Uchyate Vinarcham Asane Doshas Tatanarpita Bhojane Naivedya Bhakshanam Santaha Satsango Sad Asangatihi Asad Gatir Vaishnavopa Hasa Nindadi Dushpalam. The contents of the 10th Vilasa are association with the devotees of the Lord, giving up association with non-devotees, and aiming, and the aim of the non-devotees, the bad result one attains by blaspheming or teasing the devotees of the Lord. Text 22 and 23. Satam Bhaktir Vishnu Shastram Srimad Bhagavatam Tata Leela Kanta Cha Bhagavad Dharmaha sayam nija kritaha. Karma pata pariharas tri kalarcha visheshataha naktam krityan yato puja phala siddhyati darshanam. Displaying love and devotion to the devotees, inviting the devotees and offering prayers to them, hearing the recitation of Vaishnava literatures, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing about the pastimes of the Lord and the glories of the supreme religious principle. The contents of the 11th Vilas are the performance of one's daily worship in the evening. The Vaishnavas are not subjected to the results of karma, duties to be performed at night, putting the Lord to rest while singing and playing musical instruments, the means for achieving the results of worship, the result one obtains by seeing the deity form of the Lord. Text 24 to 27. Vishnavarta dhanam vivido panchara nyuna purananam shayanam mahimachayaha shriman namnas tatad bhutaha namaparada bhaktischa prematashraya nadayaha pads pakshe svekadasi sangha shri dwaras yastakam mahat krityani marga shiradi maseshu dvaraseshvapi purascharna krityani mantram sirasya lakshanam murtyavi bhavanam murti patista krishna mandiram jirnodrita Sri Tulasi vivahon nyanya karmacha. Giving cows in charity for the pleasure of the Lord, offering various gifts to the Lord, the way in which one should rest, the glories of worshiping the Lord, the glories of the holy name of the Lord, the 10 types of offenses against chanting the holy name, the process for nullifying the offenses against the holy name, devotional service to the Lord is most rare, the glories of devotional service, the symptoms of love of God, and the process of surrender. In the 12th and 13th Vilasas, the following subjects are discussed: the observance of the vow of Ekadasi, the process for following the vows of Dasami and Dwadasi, following the vow of the 8 Mahadwadasis, and the glories of staying awake at night. The 14th and 15th Vilasas discuss the process of following the rituals prescribed for 11 months, such as Agrayana. The 16th Vilas discusses the glories of observing the vow from the month of Kartika and the process of observing it. The 17th Vilas discusses the process of chanting mantras that are given by one's spiritual master, the symptoms of the perfection achieved by the chanting of the mantras. The 18th Vilas discusses the various manifestations of the deity form of the Lord. The 19th Vilas discusses the process of installing the deity. The 20th Vilas discusses the glories of building a temple of Lord Krishna and the process of building it, the renovation of an old temple, the process of conducting the marriage of Tulsi Devi, and the symptoms of an unalloyed pure devotee of the Lord. So that is the end of the section which is called the Lekya Pratigya, or the table of contents of Hari Bhakti Vilas. So that mentions in brief the topics which are going to be covered in Hari Bhakti Vilas in the Vilasas or chapters 1 to 20.
Could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I'm not exactly sure how to word it so much, but my thought is that there are a lot of minute details, in the daily, in the life of a Vaishnava, the way that you're supposed to live it, that are described here in Hari Bhakti Vilas. But I find it interesting that there's no mention of the samskaras, for instance. So is there some other place where that is mentioned?
Okay, so first of all, the samskaras which you're talking about, there's different types of samskaras.
Mm-hmm.
What does the word samskara mean? The word samskara means purificatory ceremony. So a process of purification. So that process of purification can be either Vedic or it can be Pancharatric. So the Pancharatric samskara is initiation, is Diksha. That will be covered in the second Vilasa. That is a Vaishnava samskara. Then there are normal samskaras that are there, Vedic samskaras, which are followed by 3 classes of people in Vedic society: the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas. The Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, because there's 3 of them, 3 sets of types of them, people, they are called Trivarnikas. Tri means 3. Varnika means, Varna word Varna means color, but it means in this sense, there are 4 Varnas in the Varnashrama system. There's the Brahman, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Shudra. Okay, so for Shudras, there are no samskaras. There are none of these Vedic samskaras because Sudras, and in some aspects also for ladies, they're in the medieval Varnashram system, they were excluded from Vedic samskaras because they couldn't chant the mantras of the Vedas. They were forbidden to chant the Omkara or the mantras of the Vedas. It's going to be dealt with here, the difference between ordinary Shudras and Vaishnava Shudras. That Vaishnavas, they are initiated with particular mantras that might include the Omkara. So obviously, Vaishnavas have a little bit of a different situation than regular Shudras. It is assumed by the author here, Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, that the people reading this book in Sanskrit are probably literate in Sanskrit and have, right? If I give you a book in Sanskrit and you can't read it, it means you can't read Sanskrit. So when you write a book in Sanskrit, you assume the people reading it are going to read Sanskrit. Learning Sanskrit is something that you do when you go to Gurukula. So that would normally be for the male Trivarnikas. The Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas, boys, would go to Gurukul. This is in the medieval Varnashram system. That's not to say that some women didn't learn Sanskrit. That's not to say that some Sudras didn't learn Sanskrit. It's possible that they would, but in the medieval system of Varnashram, there's no reason why they would, and they would just go to, those Trivarnika boys would go to Gurukul and learn Sanskrit. Then they could read a book like this. They would know Sanskrit, and they would be able to, because they took Upanayanam, which is a Vedic samskar, they would be able to then do other samskaras, Vedic samskaras. That's again, we've discussed this before, that the general qualification for performing a samskara is that one is a Trivarnika, that one is performing Sandhya Vandanam and has had Upanayanam. Otherwise, to do a Vedic samskara, one doesn't have any real, in the medieval Dharma Shastras, doesn't give people the right to do those things. So, since this is a book for Vaishnavas, and not just Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, it's a book for all Vaishnavas. And not all Vaishnavas are Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishnava males. There are females, and there are also people who are not Trivarnikas, males who are not Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. They are also Vaishnavas. Anybody can be a Vaishnava, right? So in the society where this was written, those people who were Trivarnika males, who were Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya males, already understood these rituals of samskaras, Vedic samskaras, from their families. They would have already learned Sanskrit to read the book. They would have already been doing Sandhya Vandana according to whichever Veda and whichever Gotra and whichever Sutra their family followed. And they would know how to do those other things, and there are other books for those things. So according to the family that those people were born into, those Trivarnika males, there would be different. They would be either following Apastamba or Ashvalayana or one of these other sutras, depending on what branch of the Veda they had learned in Gurukula, which is prevalent in their family, and they would know all those things. Therefore, there's no reason in this book to double up and tell people things that they already know. That's the point. So the main samskara in Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is described, is the Pancharatric samskara, which is open for everybody. And that is the Pancharatric Vaishnava Pancharatric samskara of Diksha or initiation. And that will be described very early on in the second Vilas, because the first Vilas is going to be about finding a teacher, and then the teacher bestows Diksha on the student. After the table of contents, the very first, we had the Mangala Charanam, which was 4 or 5 prayers, I think 4 prayers, right, to Lord Chaitanya and to the different associates of Lord Chaitanya and to the Goswamis, whatever, and a mention of the name of the author, Gopalbhata Goswami, and then praying to his deity, Radharaman, and also in the commentary praying, Sanatana Goswami praying to Madan Mohan. And then from verse 5 to 20 to 27, we have the Lekya Pratigya, the table of contents, and now we start the book proper with the subject. Tatra, this is text 28 of the first Vilas. Tatra Guru Upasati Karanam. Karana means the cause. Guru Upasati means of accepting the Guru, the reason for accepting a bona fide spiritual master. So the verse is, Kripaya Krishna Devasya Tad Bhakta Jana Sangataha Bhaktir Mahatmyam Akarnya Tam Ichan Sadgurum Bhajet. Bhajet means worship. Sadgurum. Sadgurum means an eternal guru, an eternal teacher. Not just an ordinary teacher, because the word teacher, guru, means teacher. So there are so many teachers that we have in life that teach us different things, mundane subjects. But a person who is a Sadguru is teaching us, again, we talked about that word Sad, which means eternal. So eternal things that are spiritual, right, is taught by a certain person. That person is called the Sadguru or the Satguru. Satguru or Sadguru. We can also call him a Sadhu, a Satguru, Sadhu, a person who's interested in eternal things. By the mercy of Sri Krishna Chandra, meaning Lord Krishna, one attains the association of his devotees. And as a result of such association, one receives an opportunity to hear the glories of devotional service. Persons who desire to engage in pure devotional service, which derides even the concept of liberation, should take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Okay? Verse 129. Vilas 1, verse 29. Atranu bhuyate nityam dukkha shreni paratracha dusaha shruryate shastrat titir shed api tam sudihi. After realizing that day-to-day life in this material world is simply miserable, and after hearing from Shastra about the unbearable miseries that may be experienced in the next life, intelligent persons should take shelter of the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master to be delivered from such miseries and to hear about the glories of devotional service. Otherwise, one will be as foolish as the hunter who committed suicide. So I don't exactly know where this story of the hunter committing suicide is from. Maybe somebody else. Maybe we have to look in the commentary for this. Anyhow, we're going to go on to text 30. Tata choktam ekadasa skande bhagavata Sri Datena So, Sri Dattatreya has said in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11.9.29, Labdva sudurlabham imam idam bahu sambhavante manusyam artadam anityam apiha dhiraha turnam yatena na pated anumritya yavan Nishreyasyaya Vishaya Kalo Sarvatrasyat. After many, many births and deaths, one achieves the rare human form of life, which, although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Thus, a sober human being should immediately endeavor for the ultimate perfection in life and not fall down into the cycle of repeated birth and death. After all, sense gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is only possible for a human being. Text 31. Swayam Sri Bhagavata Cha. Lord Krishna has said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 20th chapter, verse 17, Rideham adyam sulabham sudurlabham pavam sukalpam guru karnadharam mayanukulyena kulena navasvateritam human bhavabdim nataret sa'atmaha. The human body, which can award all benefit in life, is automatically obtained by the laws of nature. Although it is a very rare achievement. This human body can be compared to the perfectly constructed boat, having the spiritual master as the captain and the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as favorable winds, impelling it on its course. Considering all these advantages, the human being who does not utilize his human life to cross the ocean of material existence must be considered the killer of his own soul. So text 32 says, Ata Shri Guru Upasati, taking shelter of the bona fide spiritual master is the heading. So this first section was the reason for taking shelter of a guru. And now he's going to talk about actually taking shelter of the guru. Tatraiva Shri Prabhuda Yogeshwaroktau. One of the Nava Yogendras, Shri Prabhuda, has said in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 3rd chapter, 21st verse, Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta Jignasu Shreya Uttamam Shabde Pare Chanishnatam Brahman Yupas Samashrayam. Therefore, any person who seriously desires real happiness must seek a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of the bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be understood to be bona fide spiritual masters. So let's just look at that. So first of all, we've understood in the previous section why we should take shelter of a spiritual master. And then here, he's beginning to give some qualifications of that person. The bona fide spiritual master is realized in the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation, by discussion, by meditation, by going over them again and again. He's understood the conclusions of the scriptures. And he's able to convince others about those conclusions also. Right? So he not only has theoretical knowledge, but he has practical knowledge of discussing it with other people, the conclusions of the scriptures. And he's able to convince others of the conclusions that he came to by studying the scriptures. So that's first thing that we should note about a bona fide guru. Text 33 says, Swayam Shri Bhagavad Uktau. The Lord, the Supreme Lord, has declared in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.10.5. Mad Abhigyam Guru Shantam Upasita Mad Atmakam. One should take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who is peaceful, who knows the truth about me, and whose heart and mind are fixed on me. Right? So here's some more qualifications. You should take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who is peaceful. The person should be peaceful. The word shantam is used. Who knows the truth about me. So that is the truth given in the scriptures about God. And whose heart and mind are fixed on me. So that he should be, his heart and mind. Heart is sometimes synonymous with the mind, but he should be thinking of God. He should be always thinking of God. Now, in text 34, it says, Krama Dipikayam Cha, which means, and from the Krama Dipika, right? In Krama Dipika composed by Sri Keshavacharya, the following description is found. Keshavacharya, otherwise known as Keshava Kashmiri, because he was from Kashmir, is a Vaishnava Acharya of the Nimbarka Sampradaya, and he has written a book called Krama Dipika. Krama means how to do something, process of doing something. Krama actually means, kramati means to walk. So as we walk step by step. So a krama is something which takes us step by step, like a cookbook takes you step by step how to cook something. So Dipika, the word Deepa means a flame. Dipika means a light shining on the process of doing something in order, step by step. So this book, Krama Dipika, by Keshava Kashmiri of the Nimbark Sampradaya, has to do with how to perform the worship by using the Gopala mantra. The Gopal mantra is an 18-syllable mantra given at initiation in Gaudiya Sampradaya and used by other Sampradayas also. It is, I believe it's coming from and mentioned in the Gopala Tapani Upanishad, right? So it's an Upanishadic mantra, but also considered a Pancharatric mantra as well, and used in the worship of Lord Krishna. It is 18 syllables: Klim, Krishnaya, Govindaya, Gopijana Vallabhaya, Swaha. And there are other forms of it also. And the worship of it is, and the use of it is mostly coming in this book, Krama Dipika, by Keshava Kashmiri, or Keshavacharya of the Nimbarka Sampradaya. And we will find as we go through Hari Bhakti Vilas that the puja, the Purascharana, and many other issues here are done according to the Krama, are given many big quotes from Krama Dipika. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time to explain what Krama Dipika was. Normally today people think of Shaivism, of Hinduism coming from Kashmir as being mostly Kashmiri Shaivism. But there was a type of Kashmiri Vaishnavism also. There was Vaishnavism there also. In fact, at the time of Ramanujacharya, Ramanuja went with his disciple Kuradalwan or Kuresha to the Sharda Pitam, which is the mutt of Sharda Devi, goddess, in Kashmir. And there they kept the manuscripts of the Bodhayana Vritti, the commentary on the Vedanta Sutras by the sage Bodhayana. And they, after studying that, Ramanuja wrote his Shribhasya, his commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So Kashmir has been, in the previous times, a big center of Sanskrit learning, not only for Kashmiri Shaivism and Shaktism, but also of Vaishnavism. So this Kramadipika is a book by this Keshava Kashmiri. So here's the verse coming from Kramadipika in text 34 of the first Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. Vipram pradvasta kama prabriti ripu gatam niyamalangam garishtan bhaktim krishnangri pankeruha yugala rajo raginim udvahantam vetaram veda shastragama vimala pantam samatam satsudantam vidyam ya samvivitsu pravanatanum mana deshikam samshrayeta. A person who desires to learn the science of devotional service should take shelter of an acharya. An acharya means a teacher or a guru. Who is the knower of the Vedas, right? Number one, he's the knower of the Vedas. Who has conquered the 6 enemies, lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, and envy. Who has intense devotion for the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Who knows the rules and regulations that must be practiced on the path of pure devotional service, and that is prescribed in the Vedas and Pancharatras, who is respected by other saintly persons, and whose senses are fully under his control. He should then serve the Acharya with his body, mind, and words. So that's what is said. Text 35, it says, Shrutavapi. In the Mundaka Upanishad 1.2.12 and the Chandogya Upanishad 6.14.2, it is stated. So here we have a quotation from the Mundaka and the Chandogya Upanishads. Very, very important Vedic pramana given here. Tad Vigyanatam Sad Gurum Eva Bigachet Samitpanihi Strotram Brahmanishtam Strotriyam Brahmanishtam Acharyavan Purusho Veda. To learn the spiritual science, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master. While approaching the spiritual master, one should carry wood to burn in sacrifice. Why? Because this is what people used to do in the Vedic times. They would do sacrifice, fire sacrifice. And so the spiritual master, the guru in his ashram, he's a grihasta. Why is he a grihasta? In the Bhagavad Gita it's stated, Sasanyasi cha yogi cha naniragnina chakriya. Yogis and sannyasis, renunciates, right, have no, they have no qualification according to the Vedic system to perform Vedic ceremonies or Vedic fire sacrifices. Now, there are other forms of sacrifice. There are modern other forms of sacrifice, but in general, sannyasis and yogis, they're according to Bhagavad Gita, they light no fire and perform no work. They have retired and renounced their work, which they had in society, and dedicating themselves purely to spiritual things. And they don't cook for themselves or touch fire in any way. Fire is, of course, got to do with Rajaguna or passion, right? So they are want to be completely sattvic in the mode of goodness, so they don't touch fire or any heated metal or even metal, because metal is a product of fire, right? But here it's saying that that one should approach, in the Vedas it says, one should approach a spiritual master with wood in his hands. The wood is firewood for the Vedic fire. The spiritual master tends the Vedic fire. And the Vedic fires are kept going daily, morning and evening. And therefore, the student who comes should bring with him some firewood for the spiritual master's fire. That means the spiritual master is necessarily a grihasta, because brahmacharis do not have the right to perform the fire, this particular type of fire. The brahmacharis have a type of fire which they perform, very simple. It's called samiddanam. They put one twig on a fire, samiddanam. They put one twig on a fire, and they morning and evening, and they perform that ritual when they're in Gurukula. After they marry, they have the right to perform all the other fires. But the brahmacharis can perform only one type of fire, and that is samiddanam. The grihastas are the other people who perform all the other fires. So in the Vedic religion, fire ceremony was very important, and therefore it would always be done by the grihastas. The pramana here from the Mundaka and Chandogya Upanishads are saying you should approach a person like that as a spiritual master. That means a grihasta. So the original spiritual masters were grihastas. The symptom of such a spiritual master is that he is expert in understanding the Vedic conclusions. So he's teaching the Vedas. He also understands the Vedas. We shouldn't just know Vedic mantras, but we should understand the meaning of the Vedic mantras also. Therefore, he constantly engages in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who follows the disciplic succession, the lineage of teachers, also called parampara. The word parampara means one after another. There's a lineage of teachers. If you want to learn something from somebody, that person must have learned something from a previous person. So the first thing to ask when you go to see a guru is, who did you learn what you're teaching from? What is your lineage? What is your lineage? Are you just making up what you're telling me? Did you get some divine inspiration and you don't have any lineage? Or do you have a lineage of teachers, one after another, who've taught you this? Have you personally studied? I'm coming to personally study under you. Have you personally studied under someone else? That is the first qualification of a spiritual master, is that he was also a disciple. If the guru was not a disciple, then how did he learn what he is teaching you? So it is a system of descending knowledge, not a system of ascending knowledge. The modern scientific method is ascending knowledge. Whatever person came before, I take what he did and I speculate and I experiment and I reach some new conclusion. But the system of Vedic understanding is we go to somebody who learned from somebody who learned from somebody who originally learned from God. It's the knowledge is descending from God through a different guru parampara, through a different series of teachers to us. And it is being passed down in unbroken succession. And as Lord Krishna says, evam parampara praptam iman raja. In the Bhagavad Gita, he gives this verse and he says, as I spoke to the sun god and sun god spoke to Manu and Manu spoke to Ikshvaku, like that, as it was passed down. And Lord Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, at certain point, sometimes that knowledge is lost. It's not continued to be passed down, or it's passed out wrongly, or some difference is made in when it's passed down. Then that is considered to be broken. The parampara is considered to be broken and has to be reestablished again. And Lord Krishna comes again, the Lord comes again and reestablishes, or he sends some great personality to establish again a parampara. So that's another thing. So this is another qualification. One who follows the disciplic succession of acharyas knows things as they are. Right? So if you want to know things as they are, you have to plug into some succession of acharyas, some lineage. So it's important to know the lineage. It's important your guru knows his lineage. And it's important to question the guru. The first thing you do is question the guru, what's your lineage? Who did you I want to ask you something. But before I ask you that, who did you learn everything you know about from? So, text 36, Ata Guru Pasati Nityata. It says the acceptance of the spiritual master is eternal. This word nityata or nitya, it means also compulsory or eternal, always to be done. So, he's quoting here from Sri Bhagavate Dasamaskande Shruti Stutau. The personified Vedas offers prayers to the Supreme Lord as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 87th chapter, 33rd verse. So it's quoted here. We're going to find this as we go through. There are some times when Gopalpada Goswami is just saying something, but mostly what he's doing is he's simply quoting from other scriptures, and therefore it's always said where those texts come from. So not only when we want to prove something or we want to preach something, do we have to know the thing that we're trying to preach, the doctrinal practice, but we have to also know the scriptural pramana or proof that backs up what we're saying. So here, whenever he says to do something, he backs it up with quotes from different scriptures. So here's from the a verse from the was there a question?
Yeah, just kind of blowing my mind seeing so many different scriptures quoted, because you imagine the Goswamis living under trees in Vrindavan. Vrindavan was it was like a jungle back then. It's pretty amazing to see the amount of scriptures that are quoted here.
Well, we have to also remember that some people are what we call Shrutidars. They hear something once and they remember it. And they have people who have studied all the Vedas and they've studied all these scriptures and they know them all by heart.
Amazing.
So it's not that the Goswamis necessarily had big libraries of books around them to make these notes. But perhaps they had some. But, having grown up in Vaishnava society, in Hindu society there as Sanskritists and everything, and gone to Gurukul, they studied many books and they know those things. And so maybe he knew many of these things off by heart. It's not so rare. I met people in Vrindavan great scholars who knew many, there are people who know the whole Bhagavatam by heart. There are people who know the whole Vedas, the whole Yajurveda by heart. So there are people like that even today. So what to speak of in previous times when people were even more learned. So here's this now verse 36 of the first Vilas. Vijay Hrisika Vayubir Adanta Manas Turagam Ya Iha Yatanti Yantu Mati Lolam Upaya Kidaha Vyasana Shatan Pita Samavaya Vahaya Guros Charanam Vanija Ivaja Santyakrita Karnadara Jaladau. Okay, so this is from 10th canto, 87th chapter, 33rd verse. The mind, this is about the acceptance of the spiritual master is eternal. The mind is like an impetuous horse that even persons who have regulated their senses and breath cannot control. Those in this world who try to tame the uncontrolled mind, but who abandon the lotus feet of their spiritual master, encounter hundreds of obstacles in their cultivation of various distressful practices. O unborn Lord, they are like merchants on a boat in the ocean who have failed to employ a helmsman. So you're on a boat and you're in the middle of the ocean, but you don't have a captain. You have nobody who is able to steer the boat, to direct the boat to the destination. So you're basically you're set adrift on the boat of life, on the ocean of life, on the boat of the body in the ocean of life. So these are part of the prayers of the personified Vedas to the Supreme Lord in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto. Next, the next quotation is also coming from the Shruti, from the Vedas. So text 37, Shrutalcha, comes from the Katha Upanishad 129. There it said, Naisha Tarkena Matir Apaneya Proptan Ye Naiva Sugyanaya Presta. This realization, my dear boy, who knows the Katha Upanishad? In Katha Upanishad, there's a boy called Nachiketas. And this boy, Nachiketas, observes his father. His father is offering Vedic sacrifices. So in Vedic sacrifices, the Yajamana, the person who wants the sacrifice to be performed, the sponsor of the sacrifice, gives dakshina, or he gives a sacrificial fee to the Brahmins who perform that sacrifice. So Nachiketas' father gives cows to the Brahmins as gifts, right? He's donating, or he's giving these sacrificial fees to the Brahmins. He's giving cows to them. But these cows that he gives are really skinny and really old. So a skinny old cow isn't much use, right? Its life is almost over, and it's very skinny. Can't give you hardly any milk, so it's useful. It's practically useless. So Nachiketas, he says, why are you giving these cows that hardly eat any grass anymore because they're so old, to these Brahmins? You're giving these useless gifts to the Brahmins. Now that the cow's already given most of its milk and most of its life is over, you're giving it to the Brahmins. So that's really a cop-out. You should be giving them a nice sacrificial fee. So he says sarcastically to his father, so his father sort of tells him, shut up, I'm just doing this. I'm giving these cows. So he says to his father, Father, and the most precious object to a father is the son or the children, right? The parents, the most precious thing that the parents will want to save before they save any more other of the things that they possess as their children, right? They're our greatest joy, the children, our greatest possession, right? So the father, he thinks Nachiketas, his son, is the greatest possession, but the son is bugging him about giving these cows to the Brahmins, useless cows. So the son says, sarcastically says to his father, if you give who will you give me to? Who will you donate me to? I'm your greatest possession. Who will you give me to? Like, who will you give me to, right? So the father knows that he's being sarcastic, and he says, I give you to Yama. I give you to hell. He basically says to Nachiketas, go to hell. Don't tell me what to do. Go to hell. He gets angry with his son. So Nachiketas takes it literally. So he goes to hell. He goes to hell, or the abode of Yamaraj. Yama means rules, the Lord of rules. The Lord of death, sometimes he's called. So he goes to the abode of Yamaraj, right? And he gets to the abode of Yamaraj and knocks on the door. There's nobody there. Yeah, nobody there. Then he waits and fasts on the doorstep of Yamaraj for 3 days. And Yamaraj finally shows up. And then Yamaraj sees that here's this boy who has been fasting on his doorstep and not receiving any hospitality from Yamaraj. He's a guest. He's what we call atiti, a guest that shows up without any announcing, without calling first. He just shows up. and Yamaraj has committed this sin of not giving him hospitality. So then Yamaraj says, okay, I'm sorry I didn't give you any hospitality. Please, I give you three wishes, 3 benedictions. So the Nachiketa says, I have come to ask you philosophy. I want to ask you some philosophical questions. So here in a translation, it says, this realization, my dear boy. So Yamaraj is speaking to Nachiketas in Kathopanishad. And he's saying, my dear boy, this realization cannot be acquired by means of logic. It must be spoken by an exceptionally qualified spiritual master to the knowledgeable disciple. The disciple also has to be knowledgeable. The disciple, the student, cannot be stupid also. We're going to see later on the great qualifications you have to just to be a student. So here Yamaraj is saying to Nachiketas that you cannot understand this idea. You cannot actually fully understand this idea of the real need you have for a spiritual guru unless you're a knowledgeable disciple. It must be spoken exceptionally by an exceptionally qualified master to a knowledgeable student. That's from the Shruti. Okay, so now we're going to get a whole lot of qualifications of the guru, of the teacher. And when we say teacher, we not only mean all sorts of teachers. We mean the Shiksha Guru and the Diksha Guru also. Anybody who's a teacher. As we see, the person approaches and learns something from the teacher, and then later on, the teacher, when the student gets to a certain point, the teacher will initiate him. So, verses 38 to 40 of the first Vilasa. Atha visheshataha Shri Guru Lakshanani. The Lakshanam means qualities, right? And the strict meaning of the word Lakshanam means those qualifications which that person has, which are not there in anybody else, right? Because, for instance, we have a horse, a cow. They both have 4 legs. So if somebody is going to describe, if I say, please describe the qualities of a horse, then somebody will say it has 4 legs. But that's not a distinguishing quality of the horse. The horse has a mane. The cow doesn't have a mane. So if somebody says to me, the horse has 4 legs, but so does a cow. So explain to me the difference. So does an elephant. So explain to me the difference. If I say, what is a elephant? Tell me. Well, it has 4 legs. That is not a lakshanam. That is a quality, yeah, but it's not a distinguishing quality. The distinguishing quality of an elephant, it has a trunk, right? Or horse has a mane, which sets it apart from other animals, right? Maybe the horse and mane thing, because maybe a zebra has also. But an elephant has a trunk, no other animal has a trunk. If I say to you, there's an animal outside that has a trunk, you'll immediately say, oh, elephant. That's the distinguishing thing. That is what the word lakshana in Sanskrit means. Distinguishing quality. So here, the distinguishing qualities of a guru, of a teacher, are being described in verses 38 to 40. And it says, Visheshataha, the specific ones, the specific qualities. And it's coming from a book called Mantra Muktavali. So there's a book called Mantra Muktavali, and it's going to explain to us those qualities, those qualifications. Avadatan anvaya sudaha swachitachara tatparaha ashrami kroda rahito vedavit sarvashastravit shradavan anasuyascha priyavak priyadarshanaha suchir suvesha tarunaha sarva bhuta hite rataha, dhiman anudata matihi, purno hanta vimarshakaha, sadgunor chasu kritadihi, kritagya shishya vatsalaha. These are from Mantra Muktavali. And the translation is, a bona fide spiritual master is devoid of any faults, pure, always fixed in the principle of his ashrams. Okay, so here the word in Sanskrit is ashrami. Technically, he could be in any ashram, but the word here, ashrami, means grihastha ashram. He's a grihastha. Okay, free from anger, expert in all the Vedic literatures. All right, that doesn't mean nowadays we have in all different ashrams, in all different varnas, we have gurus. Okay, we have spiritual masters. But here, this particular list of qualifications is giving a very, very traditional list. And the very traditional list, as we said from the Shruti, when people go and bring wood to the guru, that the guru is a grihastha. And faithful on the path of devotional service. He does not find fault with others. He speaks sweetly. He is gentle. See, it says here, Vedavit Sarva Shastravit. He knows the Vedas and he knows all the Shastras. He is gentle, free from contamination, attractive, always desires the benefit of all living entities, intelligent, sober, free from material desires, non-envious, expert in discussing spiritual subject matters, steady, always engaged in the worship of the Supreme Lord, always ready to do good to others, and very affectionate to his disciples or students. Now it continues on. Verse 41. Nigrahanugrahe shakto homa mantra parayanaha uhapoha prakaragya sudatma ya kripalayaha ityadi lakshaner yukto guru sad garima nidihi. Expert at chastising his disciples, after it just said being affectionate to them, and bestowing mercy upon them. An expert in chanting mantras for the performance of a fire sacrifice. Again, when it mentions the guru, he is able to perform the fire sacrifice. He knows what to accept and what to reject. He is pure-hearted and very compassionate. These are the characteristics of a genuine spiritual master. Okay? So those are, again, from Mantra Muktavali, verses 38 to 41 of Hari Bhakti Vilas 1. Next comes a list from Agastya Samhita.